Hello children, welcome to digital class. Look into page number 163 style sheet. What do you see in the picture? We see greenery, girls playing, reading in the garden, birds, and you also see A reading environment, B reading Or Will the Dreamer Wake, C reading A Tale of Three Villagers, and we are going to know about biodiversity in this unit 6. And now we shall turn the page, children. Biodiversity. Look at the picture. In this picture, we see two different pictures. You observe in these pictures, children. In one picture, we see polluted water body with all dust and plastic papers without flora and fauna where nature is deteriorated. In the other picture, the nature is pristine, fresh with varied flora and fauna. See the pictures thoroughly, think about nature, and we know that we are going to know about environment. Coming to the definition of biodiversity. Biodiversity is the shortened form of two words, biological and diversity. It refers to all variety of life that can be found on earth. And go through the given questions which are given below. After going through the questions, practice debate, discourse on topic. Human beings cannot live on this earth without causing threat to nature. Now we shall enter into the lesson environment, in which interview of Vangar Mathai with NHK radio is given. What is environment? Environment is the surroundings or conditions in which a person, animal or plant lives on or operates. Wangari Maathai was a renowned Kenyan social environmentalist and political activist and the first African woman to win Nobel Prize. Born on 1st April 1940, Nairobi, Kenya. Died on 25th September 2011. Spouse name is Wangi Maathai. Awards she grabbed: Nobel Peace Prize, Right Livelihood Award, Goldman Environmental Prize, Edinburgh Medal. Coming to her education, she completed her University of Nairobi in 1969. She started her university and she completed in 1971, and she also did her university at Pittsburgh in 1964 and completed in 1966. And we shall know much more about her ideology in this lesson through her interview. Before entering into the lesson, let us look into the glossary, children. Greenbelt movement, a movement to protect environment, fodder, food for farm animals, forested, covered with forest, pristine, fresh and clean, indigenous, native, biological diversity, the variety of plants and animals in a particular place, exotic species, unusual plants. Now, let me read out the lesson for you, children. Environment. Interview with Wangari Maathai, environmental activist and Nobel Prize winner. Wangari Maathai started the Greenbelt movement and also fought for equal rights for women in Africa. She is first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Read the excerpts from her interview with Nippon Hoso Koikai NHK Radio, Japan. NHK Radio, how did you become aware of the environment? Wangari Mathai. From the time we started, we were trying to respond to the basic needs of people in the rural area, and people were asking for clean drinking water, for food, for energy, which is mostly firewood, for building material, for fodder, for animals, and all these comes from the land. So we knew that what the people in the rural areas were asking for had to do with the environment. They did not have those things because the environment was degraded. So, from the very beginning, we understood that we have to rehabilitate the environment. The forested mountains were the source of water and the source of rain. So, when you deforest, you cause a shortage of water and a change of rainfall pattern, and therefore, people are not able to get food and water. Therefore, in order for them to have good environment that can sustain their livelihood, it is important to have a government that accounts to them, that protects their interests, that is concerned about their lives. And Nobel Prize is very prestigious award. It is not an ordinary award. It is very prestigious award given to very excellencies, and we can assume the importance of Wangari Maathai and her dedication towards her work and her commitment. And she got Nobel Prize for fighting for equal rights for women in Africa and for starting green belt movement in Africa, and for which NHK Radio took interview with her, and that glimpses are given in our textbook, in our lesson environment. NHK Radio asked Wangari Maathai, how did you become aware of environment? For which she said that when we started working with people, we tried to respond for the basic needs of the people, and we found what are the basic needs. Basic needs are nothing but fresh drinking water, food, firewood, as well as food for animals, building material are the basic requirements, and all these basic requirements are attained from the land, and this land is being deteriorated. This is to be restored, and this restoration is to be done first, she thought, and started to rehabilitate the environment. She also mentioned if at all any shortage of water is existed, that shortage of water is only due to cutting of forest. That restored, when forest is restored, rains will be restored. Rains are restored, again water will be restored, again the environment will be rehabilitated, she said. NHK Radio asked, how is peace connected to good environment? Wangari Maathai, many wars that are fought in the world are fought over natural resources. Some wars are fought because the environment is so degraded that it is not able to support communities, and so they fight over the little that is left. Others are fought because some people want to take a lot of resources to control them and to keep many other people out. Now, whether this happens to the national level or at the regional level or even at the global level, sooner or later there is discontent, and when that discontent is strong enough, there is conflict. So, good management of natural resources, equitable distribution of these resources is important for peace. At the same time, good management of natural resources is not possible if you do not have democratic space, respect for human beings, respect for human rights, giving other people dignity. That is why the three themes are related, like the African stool with three legs and the basis on which you sit. The three legs, one leg is peace, the other leg is good governance, the third leg is sustainable management of resources. When you have those three legs, now you can put the basin, which is development. And if you try to balance that stool without those three, it won't happen. We have not shared our resources equitably. We have allowed some people, especially those in power, to acquire a lot at the expense of the majority, and we have also engaged in conflict. NHK Radio asked, how is peace related to good environment? Vangari Matai gave very beautiful answer. She said, many wars that were fought in the world are fought over natural resources. Some wars are fought because the environment is so degraded that is not able to support communities, and so they fight over the little that is left. Others are fought because some people want to take a lot of resources to control them and to keep many other people. Now, whether this happens at the national level or at regional level or even at the global level, sooner or later there is dissatisfaction. And when that dissatisfaction is strong enough, there is conflict. So, good management of natural resources, equitable distribution of resources is important for peace. At the same time, good management of natural resources is not possible if you don't have democratic space, respect for human beings, respect for human rights, giving other people dignity, and also she gives beautiful relation for these three themes it called it as African stool with three legs, and the basin on which you sit. One leg is peace, the other leg is good governance, the third leg is sustainable management of resource. When you have those three legs, now you can put the basin, which is development. And if you try to balance that stool without those three, it won't happen. Here, she wanted to tell development of nation, a country, or any part of a country is based on three pillars, that is, peace, good governance, and sustainable management of resources. What an ideology! She also says if you want to try to balance that stool without these three, it won't happen. We have not shared our resources equitably. We have allowed some people, especially those in power, to acquire a lot at the expense of the majority, and we have also engaged in conflict. Such is the beauty of her views. NHK Radio. What was the environment like when you were young, and how did you go about saving it? Vangari Mathai. When I was a child, which I almost more than 50 years ago, the environment was very pristine, very beautiful, and very green. We were a British colony, and the British government at that time started to clear cut the indigenous forest in our forested mountain because they wanted to establish commercial plantation of exotic species of trees such as the pines from northern hemispheres and the eucalyptus from Australia. These trees are very nice. They grow tall and they grow very fast. But as they grow, they destroy all the local biological diversity. All the flora and fauna disappeared. So, although we were getting commercial timber for the growing timber industry, we also destroy our local flora and fauna. As a result, these forests, which were the water towers, were no longer able to contain the water. So, when the rains fell, the water ran downstream and ended up in the lakes and oceans instead of going down into the underground reservoirs so that it could come back to us in the form of rivers. One thing we noted is that not only did the rain pattern changes become less, but also the rivers started drying up. We lost our local biological diversity, so that's a lot of damage to our environment. That is why in 1975, at the very first United Nations Conference for Women in Mexico, many of women were saying, we need food, we need water, we need clean drinking water, we need water for our animals. And I was wondering what has happened. These are things that were there 20 years ago when I was a child. The environment had changed, and that's when I started this campaign to restore the vegetation and to restore the land and to rehabilitate the forest. When Wangari Maathai was asked how was the environment when she was young, she told the environment was very pristine, fresh, beautiful, very green, and they were British colony and British government cleared cut indigenous forest and forested mountains with exotic species like uh, pines from northern hemisphere and the eucalyptus from Australia. And these trees grew tall, whereas the local flora and fauna got destroyed, she told. Although they were getting timber for their timber industry, gradually all the water streams dried up. All the rain which fell on the mountain was carried away down the mountain, down the hill, and was carried away long way. There was no drinking water for that area, and all rivers started drying up, and all local biological diversity lost. In 1975, for the first time, United Nations conference held for women in Mexico, and many women were saying they need food, they need water, they need clean drinking water, they need fodder for their animals. But she was wondering what has happened. There was plenty of fodder, drinking water, food 20 years back when she was child. What happened to the environment? Why environment has changed within this 20 years? She was puzzled. Then immediately she started campaigning to restore the vegetation and to restore the land and to rehabilitate the forest. What happened when you started working with women? Vangari Matai. Well, the first time when I told them, let us plant trees, the women said they did not know how to plant trees. So I asked them, the foresters, to come and teach them. But they were very complicated. They are professionals. It became very complicated for ordinary illiterate women. So I told the women, we shall use our common sense and just do what we do with our seeds. Women work on the farms. They are the ones who plant. They are the ones who cultivate. They are the ones who produce food. So I told them that seeds of trees are like any other seeds. So if they were to treat these tree seeds the same way they treat other seeds of food crops, there is no difference. I told them to look for old broke pots, even the put seeds there. They they will germinate and they will know these are the seedlings from the seeds they planted, and we gave them plastic bags to be able to put those seedlings and to nurture them. And when they were about half a meter long, then they could go and transplant them on their farms. In the beginning, it was difficult, but they soon gained confidence and they become very competent foresters. So I call them foresters without diplomas. When NHK radio asked what happened when you start working with women, Bangari Matai told for the first time when she started working with women, the women told that they can't work, they can't plant trees as they can't understand the technique of planting the trees. She made the foresters give them training. The technique was very much complicated. The women did not understand the technique. They feel the technique to be complicated. For which Vangari Matai said, you can use your own technique and we shall use our own common sense and seeds are seeds. We shall cultivate the trees as if we cultivate our crops. Like that, they cultivated the trees as if they cultivate their crops, and after that, they transplanted the seedlings into the carry bags, plastic carry bags. After they grew half a meter, they transplanted and they planted trees. Likewise, they succeeded in planting trees. That was the beginning. In the beginning, it was difficult, but they soon gained confidence and they become very competent foresters. So she say the foresters without diplomas. NHK Radio. Why do you think they responded so well for your message, Bangare Mathai? It was a need. When the women said they needed firewood and building material, we responded to that need. Plant trees, then you will have trees for firewood. In the tropics, trees grow very fast. In 5 or 10 years, these trees serve as firewood, as building material. Once we have planted those trees, we saw the need for them to understand why we have to have good governance. So it became important to give them civic education so that they could understand how we govern themselves, why we govern ourselves, and the way we govern ourselves, why we are managing our environment, the way we are managing it, because We were dealing with the environment. We gave them education both in civics and also in environment that made them understand clearly why they should take up the responsibility of protecting their environment, that it was not the responsibility of the government or the responsibility of somebody else to come and rehabilitate their environment on their own land. It's them, it's their responsibility. NHK Radio, that what transformations did you see? Vangari Matai. One of the bigger transformation that I saw was the ability of an ordinary illiterate woman to get to understand and to be able to plant trees that in 5 or 10 years became big tree, and she was able to cut them and be able to give herself energy to be able to sell those trees and give herself an income to be able to feel confident that she had done something for herself, that sense of pride, sense of dignity, that they are not begging, that they are doing things for themselves was very empowering. That transformation was very powerful. The other is the transformation of landscape. Places where there was dust, there are no more dust. There are trees, even birds and rabbits. They come back and they make the environment more very beautiful. There is a shade, and sometimes even dry springs come back because the water is not running. The water is going into ground. Very profound transformation. And the other transformation that I saw was the willingness of people to fight for their rights, to dedicate that they have a right to good clean environment, to decide that they will fight for their forests, they will protect their forests, and they will not allow corrupt leaders to take their public land. When NHK Radio asked, why do you think they responded so well for your message? Vangari Matai said, their need made them respond so well. They needed firewood and building material. Hence, they planted trees. And in tropics, a tree grows very fast within 5 to 10 years, and they use those trees for their firewood and building material, she told. The people are also provided with civic sense and good governance of environment. They made them understand clearly why they should take up the responsibility of protecting their environment. That is, that it was not the responsibility of government or the responsibility of somebody else to come and rehabilitate their environment or their own land. It's them, it's their responsibility. When Bangari Matai was asked what transformation did you see, Bangari Matai said, one of the biggest transformation that I saw was the ability of an ordinary illiterate woman to get to understand and to be able to plant trees that in 5 or 10 years become big trees, and she was able to cut them and be able to give herself energy and be able to sell those trees and give herself an income and to be able to feel confident, and she had done something for herself. That sense of pride, sense of dignity, that they are not begging, they are not doing things for themselves, was very empowering. That transformation was very powerful, and all the land was transformed to landscape, and there was no dust. and there are birds everywhere and rabbits seen. Beautiful environment is seen everywhere. There is shade everywhere. Spring comes and water runs everywhere. Underground water is also found. This is very profound transformation. The other right which Wangari Maathai found in the people of the area was the people were ready to fight for their rights, to decide that they have a right to clean environment, to decide that they will fight for their forest, they will protect their forest, and they will not allow corrupt leaders to take their public land. NHK Radio, how do you think you can influence the rest of Africa? Wangari Maathai. Our efforts will inspire other people to stop wasting their resource and their youth in war and instead engage in creating a peaceful environment, more peaceful states. I'm very happy about the fact that now in Africa you see new efforts of ensuring that manage our environment. We must restore our environment and try to ensure that we do not fight, because we are allowing the environment, especially the land, to be degraded, and then we fight over agricultural land and grazing land. I see a lot of hope in what is happening in Somalia, what is happening in Sudan, what is happening in West Africa. I see a lot of African leaders encouraging each other to engage in a dialogue. NHK Radio, what is the one thing we can do? Wangari Maathai, for me, my greatest activity is to plant a tree. I think that a tree is a wonderful symbol for the environment, and when we plant a tree, we plant hope, we plant the future for ourselves, for our children, for the birds. We plant something that will last long after we are gone. When NHK Radio asked, how do you think you can influence rest of the Africa, she says their efforts will inspire other people to stop wasting their resources and their youth in wars and instead engage in creating peaceful environment and more peaceful states. She also says that she feels very happy about the fact that in Africa, new efforts of ensuring engaged dialogue, invest in peaceful negotiation for conflicts, to manage environment and restore environment took place, especially the land to be degraded, and then they fought over agricultural land and grazing land. They see a lot of hope in what is happening in Somalia, what is happening in Sudan, what is happening in West Africa. They see a lot of African leaders encouraging each other to engage in dialogue. Final question, when asked by NHK Radio, what is the one thing we can do? Wangari Maathai said, for me, my greatest activity is to plant a tree. I think that a tree is a wonderful symbol for the environment, and when we plant a tree, we plant hope. We plant the future for ourselves, for our children, for the birds. We plant something that will last long after we are gone. That is very tremendous ideology of Wangari Maathai. Very inspiring message oriented life led by her. So, children, this is the additional information which we obtained from the interview of Vangari Matai. Now, you do the exercise given below and do the worksheet, children.